Hey guys, this is Mark and Jonathan back, J&M Sports Talk, and we are here previewing the Pac-12 conference this year. So get us started, Jonathan. Who are some players to watch this year?
The first guy, I think he's got more of a key role for a possibility of a team doing well, is Marquise Spiker. He's a true freshman wide receiver for Washington, but with a receiving core that's looking for a new guy, I really think he has the ability to be that guy. He's got really great hands. He sees the ball real well, and he's one of those guys that, from what I've seen in clips so far, he's one of those guys that when he gets the ball, he doesn't dance around, he just gets upfield. So I feel like with them running the ball well this year, they're going to need that receiver to go get those few extra yards for him to keep them from long downs to short.
So. Yeah, that's an interesting pick. With a freshman, I don't know. I'm going to go with the safe pick, I guess. Okay. Bryce Love, senior running back from Stanford.
Okay.
It finished second in the Heisman voting last year, well over 2,000 yards, almost 20 touchdowns. So I look for him to have another great season. It was interesting, the move that he made to come back. A lot of people thought he was ready for the NFL, but I guess being a Stanford guy, he's pretty smart. Decided to stay in school, get his degree.
Yeah, and really good for him and good for college football. It's good to see guys, especially at a place like Stanford, prioritizing an education and not just putting it aside for money. So the money will be there for him regardless with a degree from Stanford, so why not play football another year? And he's got a lot of unfinished business. Well, last year he was playing toward the end of the year, hurt so much. Just think if he stays healthy this year, what he could do.
Right. So yeah. Who's another guy you got your eye on?
I really couldn't pick just another guy. So I'm going to go with the quarterbacks of the Pac-12. There's so many interesting dynamics with the quarterbacks this year. We got Khalil Tate returning, which is awesome, but he's really one of the few only big names returning at QB. We lost Sam Darnold, we lost Josh Rosen to the NFL in the Pac-12, and Luke Falk as well. So we've lost some big names. So there's going to be big opportunities for a lot of guys to step up and hopefully do well. That in a lot of key places where they expect to win, it'll be interesting leaning on guys with not much experience. So I look forward to seeing who ends up winning these QB battles for week one and how they do this season.
Yeah, the Pac-12, generally speaking, normally has pretty good quarterback play. Mm-hmm. So for me, I'm going with the savvy senior, Jake Browning with Washington Huskies. I think he had very much a down year last year, and so he's going to rebound this year. I feel strongly about that. He's got some returning talent around him. Miles Gaskins, running back, who had a great year last year. So I look for him to come in, game one against Auburn and really use that experience to his benefit.
Okay.
So got some other good players, but those were just a few that came to mind for us.
Yeah, we talk about players to watch, though, Mark. What about some games that we're really excited about?
Yeah, so as I just mentioned, that first game of the season, a lot of people have their eyes on that. It's probably one of the better matchups.
I think we'll be
watching it. But yeah, so Washington travels to Atlanta to face Auburn. That should be a good one week one. But even week two, there's several good games. One of those being the rivalry renewed, Colorado and Nebraska. That should be a good one. They used to play every single year after Thanksgiving, but because of the conference realignment, that game stopped happening. So it's good to see that game back. Also, we mentioned in our Big 12 preview, but the UCLA-Oklahoma game.
Yeah.
Chip Kelly has a tough test in his second game there, so that should be another good game.
Yeah, and talking about Big 12, Pac-12 matchups, don't forget about Texas USC. We talked about already in our Big 12 video. But, keep along. We had this conversation earlier in the week. I was doing some research or stuff. And, Notre Dame has 2 games against Pac-12 teams this year. And if you look at their schedule, just real quick, I know they're not part of the Pac-12, but Notre Dame is going to be a big influence in the playoffs, I feel, this year. They're playing about 5 or 6 teams this year that legit will be either in the playoff picture or be a team that definitely had a say in who is there. So, who is it? They're playing 2 teams. I think Stanford's one of them. What was the other one?
Yeah, so the Stanford game is towards the end of September. Right. So relatively early in the season, Notre Dame gets Stanford at home in that one. Okay. And then you've got the rivalry with USC towards the end of the. It's actually the last game of the season for both teams. So that's at USC, but Notre Dame will be a factor in the playoff race for sure.
Either them being there because of beating all these teams, or they played them. So, I mean, that's one thing you got to keep in mind when these playoff committees will meet. That's one of the first things they're going to look at is, all right, are there any common opponents that these guys face, and how do they look against them? So, if there's games these Pac-12 teams really want to mark on their calendar, a team like Stanford especially, that we'll get into later about how we feel about how they're going to do this year, that's going to be a key game for them to show up non-conference. They need to bring their A game because they need to look good.
Right.
So now we're talking about that. Talking about the in playoff picture and all. How do you think the picture for the division races are going to go, Mark?
So let's start out with the North.
Okay.
So the North, there's several top teams there, but really, I think we were talking about it before, and really Stanford and Washington kind of rise to the top. So I really see it as being a tight race there. I would throw in Oregon and Washington State having decent years, but really Stanford and Washington. And the edge they play each other. The edge is going to be the winner of that game on November 3rd for me. So the game will be played at Washington. So I'm going to give the edge to Washington. And really for Washington, I don't see them losing any games. A kind of a coin flip might be UCLA, maybe Oregon. But I really like for Washington to have a really good season.
So you're talking about conference games, right? With this whole, they're not going to have any games but coin flip a few. Is that just conference, or are you talking big picture, Mark?
I'm talking even big picture.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I really like that pick, but not so fast, my friend. You know, I agree. Washington's going to be a great team. But I just feel like their biggest problem this year is probably going to be defensively on that defensive line. They've got a great secondary, but I think the biggest problem for them this year is going to be that defensive line. How are they going to be able to handle the run offensives of their opponents? That's really going to be the big question. I have them going 9-3. I don't have them winning in Atlanta, which is a shocker. But if there's one thing you can guarantee with these teams, even that game, they're going to both be evenly matched. And I think the biggest difference is going to come to the run game. And if there's one thing you can guarantee, Auburn's going to run the ball well. And that defensive line is going to struggle. So I like them to struggle there. I like Auburn in that one. But I think that's going to be a bigger problem for them at the end of the year when they face a team like Stanford with Bryce Love, who is an amazing athlete, especially at running back. And they're going to struggle against him when they're just going to put the load on Love. They showed last year they're going to run Love to the ground if they need to in games, unfortunately. But that's where I see the differences. So I actually have Stanford beating them and being the team to win the North. But I agree with you, too. Oregon's going to be right up there with them.
Yeah, so I have Stanford and Washington having the same conference records.
Okay.
I'm just giving no doubt. Stanford I'm very high on, too. But I think they'll end up losing to Washington. And really, Washington, I think they could lose a game. And like I said earlier, it might be UCLA, it might be Oregon.
Okay.
You know, one of those teams, I'm in pretty much agreement with you. But I just see Washington getting the edge there. What about the South? How do you see that one?
You know, this one, with all the new people coming in, between players and coaches and stuff, I think it's going to be a really tough year for a lot of teams. Even some teams people are high on, like UCLA, like you mentioned earlier. I have it as Arizona's to lose. I have them sitting at 11-1. The only loss I have for them is they have to play Oregon in the North. That was their big draw from the North, is Oregon. So I have them losing that game. So other than that, I have them going undefeated in their division, winning it out easily, and then I have a few other teams having okay years. Like you ask about maybe like a USC, I have them struggling this year because they've got a lot of them and UCLA both. I really like their talent, but I feel like they've got such difficult schedules
I
have USC sitting at 7-5 and UCLA finishing 5-7. So there's a few games in there that could be a coin flip. That could both get them to 6-6 even. But that's just how I see it. They've got too many questions for me to be for sure they can get to bowl eligibility. Both of them very well.
Yeah, I think Arizona, that's an interesting pick. I think 11-1 is being too positive on the outlook scale for them.
Yeah.
With Kevin Sumlin, no doubt he's a good fit for that program. Khalil Tate, he'll be a great quarterback in his system. But I see them going 7-5, 8-4. For me, UCLA and USC, it'll come down to the winner of that game. You mentioned the schedules. Both of those teams, you got to give them credit for going outside,
Right.
And playing some really tough teams, early in the season even.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, I think it's going to prepare them for conference play. And I like for UCLA and Chip Kelly to get the nudge over USC. I just think Chip Kelly's going to infuse a great offense, and the players are going to buy in, just like they did at Oregon. And
Right.
they'll have some good early success, but the end of the season is where that race will be decided. It'll be close to the very end. They don't play until towards the end. I think it's November 17th, and it is a home game for UCLA, so you can sometimes throw that out for rivalry games.
Yeah.
But I like for UCLA to do that. So to sum it up, I've got UCLA, I've got Washington in the championship game. Obviously, I'm high on Washington. I think they're going to take it.
All right, cool.
And I like for Washington to make the playoff, too, because
Cool.
of their record.
All right. Yeah, I think if that was to happen, you said earlier you have them beating Auburn. So I think that would be huge for them in their move.
Did I say that?
Yeah, you did. You actually did.
I might have said that earlier.
Yeah.
Off camera.
Oh, did you? Oh, well, my bad. No, we see, guys, we just love college football. We talk so much we don't know when we say things sometimes. But anyways, I'd say with them doing that, I think that would be a huge boost for them. So I agree, if your championship happens and Washington wins, I could definitely see them being in the playoff. And I think my champ will be in there too. I have Stanford in Arizona, and I have Stanford winning that game. I just think when they consider all kinds of things, that enough of the committee will consider the fact that there are student athletes at a place like Stanford, and that might give them the nod. It's when they're splitting hairs, that's one more plus for them, in my opinion, that they'll have over a lot of teams. So with that being said, I have the Cardinals going, and I think they'll make the playoff because of just the fact that I think this is going to be the first year where there's going to be several 1-2 loss teams this year. I don't think anyone's going to go out unscathed. So that's how I see it. So Mark sees it. Y'all probably disagree with everything we said. It's okay. But we thank you for y'all's time, and thanks for watching.
All right. Bye.